Hey, this is Johnny Moose from Excite
Live from
Wrestling,
the 607,
and you're
it is the
listening to
Ocho
the
Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking
ODPH.
sports
Hey, I didn't
locally
mess it
and
up. I thought I
nationally.
would.
Why don't you join in the
Right now,
conversation?
back
with
to you
hashtag
guys.
ODPH. Yo. Welcome to another edition of the ODPH. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And joining us in studio, it's your coach, it's our favorite coach, Coach Duffy.
Throw to Odell.
Hashtag it up, ODPH, if you want to join in the conversation on social media because we want to interact with you. Biggest news story of the week had to be the locks and leaps of this past week. Pad, why don't you start us off?
Well, somebody went 2-0 this week. That would be me. Took the New Orleans Saints as my leap to win against the Baltimore Ravens at home. At home in Baltimore, I should say. And they did so, 24-3. Nothing else happened. We can move on, right?
You would think, but I tell you what, the Saints are playing at an elite level right now. Baltimore was definitely up to the challenge, and Drew Brees was having a little tough time with that Baltimore defense.
So, yeah, 22 of 30, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, average just a little over 7 yards attempt. So, not your standard Drew Brees game where he's throwing for like 900 yards in a game and like 8 touchdowns.
No, I think if anybody was thinking that, they were sadly going to be mistaken in that one. There was no way that was going to be happening.
Well, so even the running game didn't really get anything stellar going. I mean, you look at Alvin Kamara's, their number one guy, 17 carries for 64 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and I know people are harping about Justin Tucker missing the field or the extra point. Listen, kickers miss. And granted, you would think he's about as automatic as you get.
I mean, prior to that, he was.
Yeah.
I could only think of like one instance where he'd missed in the past, and that was in the playoffs against the Patriots.
Yeah, but honestly, if he missed one kick out of his entire career for an extra point, I mean, granted, it's a loss. I get it. But still, I hear people saying, oh, he's a horrible kicker. It's like, do you not watch the stats with him? Like, anybody who says that doesn't watch football.
I'll say prior to that, he was, 222 out of 222?
Yeah, hadn't missed one, so.
Exactly.
I'll say that are numbers that make even Adam Vinatieri jealous.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to harp on him about missing the extra point, I mean, yeah, you can blame it on that, but it was a highly competitive game on both sides of the ball.
I'll say the wild thing for me with that kick was, 1, he missed it, and I was shocked. 2, I didn't see it live, so I had to go watch a replay of it on YouTube later. And I was like, well, what happened? Was it just a sudden gust of wind kicked up? They are in Baltimore, so right by the bay there. So the sudden gust of wind, and I'm watching the flags. I'm like, no, flags didn't really kick up. And the commentary was like, oh, it was a good hold and good place. I'm like, maybe he just missed it.
Yeah, it happens. And I mean, that's the only way you can chalk it up. But Drew Brees, he has now officially beat every team throughout his career.
Which is crazy.
Which is one of the wildest stats ever.
I mean, you hear about it in the NBA and in baseball, and you don't really hear about it in the NFL.
No, yeah, they don't. And you think that's something that they would discuss because, I mean, that's now you're going directly against the defense, too. So that's a big deal to win against all those defenses. And he's had some great defensive minds that he's had to go against.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a Hall of Famer the minute he retires. But this just puts a little more, icing on the cake, so to speak.
Of course, during the game, he did complete his 500th touchdown pass, so congratulations to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Breeze is playing at elite level. Saints are rolling right now, and we'll have to see how it ends up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because I think they're about as safe of a lock getting there other than the Rams and the Chiefs right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I mean, the NFC looks pretty much wrapped up with 2 teams right now, I would say.
Easily. Pat, who is your leap?
Well, that was my leap. For my lock, I took the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Cincinnati Bengals at home, and boy, oh boy, did they ever, big time. If there was any doubt or any questions how Kansas City would bounce back after the Sunday night game against New England where it was really a shootout, I think they put doubters to rest.
Dare I say, are we all now officially on the Patrick Mahomes fan bang?
Yeah, I think we missed that one.
No. Because I've seen this show before where a quarterback and a team is doing really, really well, cough, cough, Cincinnati, and they get to the playoffs and everyone's like, oh, maybe this is their year. Maybe they'll actually win something. And they fall apart in the worst way possible.
Well, I think that the one thing that they have going for them versus some of those teams is they have a veteran coach like Andy Reid who's been there before. So that kind of helps that standpoint.
Yeah.
So, that leadership with Patrick Mahomes there, helps a ton. Defensively, they're not great. Yeah, they've had some games where they've had great games, but I don't think playoff defense where, you need to put the stranglehold on somebody like Belichick does throughout, his career. That I don't think they have. So I think when it comes to the playoffs, and if it is an NFC championship game, New England versus Kansas City, I would favorite New England with it. But I definitely like them getting there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at their schedule going forward. They've got the Denver Broncos. They're at Cleveland. They're at home against the Cardinals. Then they play the Rams, Raiders, Ravens, Chargers, Seahawks, and Raiders to close out the year. So, I mean, the next couple of weeks, not exactly the toughest thing in the world, but, man, that November 19th game at home against the Rams, that'll be something to see.
Yeah, that middle stretch that you said there is kind of a murderer's row.
It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I'm definitely on the fan bandwagon for Mahomes because it's just something about him when he's running the offense. It's like a whole fresh take on Kansas City's normal offensive setup.
I will say this, though, because I was watching the New England game. I think New England did give a little bit of a blueprint how to beat him, because you look at the first half and the second half of that game against New England are clearly night and day. But you go back to that first half where it was a lot of defenses where nobody was in the crouching position ready to go. They were all kind of standing and hiding. I remember watching the game, and there were a couple passes that Mahomes was making on the run into double coverage, and I'm like, he should not be making these throws.
Those amoeba defenses where they don't line anybody down.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see if teams make the adjustment moving down the stretch, but for right now, I mean, Kansas City is definitely looking like Super Bowl contenders midway in the season. Coach, who you got for your locks and leaps?
All right, I'm going to start with the fact that I also went 2-0. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my lock, which was the Rams. I mean, that's a no-brainer at this point. I think you can pretty much just ride them out the rest of the year. They're just a good football team.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, I'm looking at their schedule. Next week they play the Packers. Then they are at New Orleans, at home against the Seahawks, at home against the Chiefs. Then they travel to Detroit, travel to Chicago. And then they play the Eagles, Cardinals, and 49ers to close out the year. I see a couple of games in there that might be a little struggling. I mean, you look at Kansas City, you look at the Eagles, but they're playing the 49ers and Cardinals to close out the year. They're not going to be in any real struggles there.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that they're in the NFC West with, getting basically 6 wins a year for sure that are a lock. But, I mean, they're just a good football team. Gurley is playing like an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
I don't think that's any question. Their defense is so stout that I don't think you can do anything on them, that you want a game plan for. So I honestly, and with the way that the NFC East is the NFC is shaking up, they have to be the NFC favorite for sure.
Easily.
Oh, easily right now. I think obviously you see Gurley is playing like an MVP caliber season right now. He has definitely the pedigree for it. 3 touchdowns this past week. And you got to just look at that offense and defense is both clicking at the right time. They just seem like a well-oiled machine no matter who you face them against. This week will be a real test, though, because they got Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how the defense plays and how Rodgers maybe can show a blueprint of how to beat them or at least keep it close.
But even to that point, though, shootouts favor the Rams because they've shown they can play in that setting, too.
It's going to be interesting to see because I always would go with like the veteran quarterback over the young upstart. And I would say if it comes down to shootout, I like Rodgers. This is not my lock and leap. I just want to stress that right now. Yeah. But I'm just saying, going against Aaron Rodgers, Goff has to play exceptionally well.
Well, you look at it on paper, they're in for a shootout the next 2 weeks because, like you mentioned, they're playing Green Bay this coming week, and then the following week they're going to New Orleans and facing Breeze.
Yeah, I think the biggest test is going to be that game on the road against New Orleans. That might be the hiccup game there because
it's in the Superdome.
Yeah,
Superdome's going to be the Rams at this point as we record they're 7-0. If they win this week against Green Bay and they roll into New Orleans and they're undefeated, the fans are going to be up and ready for that one.
Yeah, without question. It's going to be interesting to see how the Rams are going against those teams because obviously they're beating on the weaker teams as they should.
Yeah,
because
right.
Just how stacked they are. But when they really are starting to have their competition, like the teams they're going to be facing possibly in the playoffs, this is going to be the true litmus test.
Right, and that's what New Orleans just did with that road win against Baltimore, was show that they can play in those tough games. And just real quick about New Orleans, this team this year is a little bit different than any other team because now they have a run game. And that run game really might give, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but they might give the Rams a fit because now they're not afraid to give it to Kamara or Ingram and not have Drew Brees throw 50 times a game, which is huge for him as a quarterback to be able to control the clock a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they can get that going, that's going to be the true test because if Breeze doesn't have to go and throw for 500 yards against him, it's going to be more in their favor, I think.
So you get a quarterback of an elite caliber like a Drew Brees, a situation or scenario where they're at the end of the game and it's tied or close, and it's like, let's just say it's 2 minutes in the fourth quarter and they need a field goal to win. You give that man a running game and a way to burn that clock down, he will do it all day.
And we haven't seen the Rams really playing a game like that. So it'll be interesting to see a test like that, a real true barn burner.
Mm-hmm.
And then for my leap, this makes me so happy to say this, the Titans covered.
Yeah, they did.
I saw the spread, and it was 6.5, and I just thought to myself, you know what? An England game, tough, for the Chargers to travel west, or east as they did. I mean, that's a far flight for them coming all the way from Los Angeles to London. That's tough. So
yeah, that's you need some extra pillows when you get to London and get some sleep.
So I just thought to myself, all the London games are usually close. They're usually, tests, barn burners there. So I just thought, you know what? I got a good feeling on the Titans. They're going to cover the spread, and by God, they covered.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things like with the London games. You always look at the matchups and you go, why? You're trying to get the fans overseas interested. Why are you sending? Like, I remember there was 1 year it was like Jacksonville and some other team that was in the bottom of the league. And I'm just like, why? And it actually ended up being a close game.
Yeah, I mean, I know the NFL is trying to expand the game and make it more international. I don't know how it's going to pan out long term. But it's interesting to see when our American teams get over there to see the reaction if the jet lag is a factor. I think it was for the team formerly known as San Diego, because I hate calling them the LA Chargers. I truly do.
The flight over to London is always a tough one for every team in the NFL, no matter who it is. That's why they get the next week off. But it's especially hard for Los Angeles, like you said, flying from the West Coast all the way across the country and then all the way across an ocean into, like, if I'm not mistaken, from the East Coast, London's like 6 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
So you got to throw in, so that's at least like a 10-hour flight or something like that.
And it's like, to make that flight for a team that's on the West Coast, to make that game, just period, to make that game for a team on the West Coast is just, it's asking so much of them to do. And, whatever about losing a home game for whatever team, yeah, that sucks. But, growing the game is important for the NFL to do because they need to make this game global. I mean, obviously they don't have it as an Olympic sport, so they need something, and bringing the game over there is one way for them to do it. The problem is, like ESPN and Monday Night Football, they just get the worst matchups.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't help it because when you make the schedule, you see, the Titans were projected to do well, not great. And obviously the Chargers were, projected to be a playoff team. So you're looking at this matchup and you're thinking, all right, these are going to be two teams that are playoff elite caliber. And then the next thing you know, Titans are, not that good, and the Chargers are.
Well, and especially it's hard to judge because you're going off, when they're making the schedule, they're going off of information that at the time, they're going off of stuff on paper. I mean, you look at if they put Oakland in a Monday Night Football game at this point. When they made the schedule on paper, Oakland was a good team.
Right.
You look at them now; they're like 1-5 in the bottom of the division.
But the nice feature for NBC is they can flex games, while ESPN is stuck.
Yeah. It's NBC can flex games, and then if I'm not mistaken, they can flex games for the later games, the afternoon games. But yeah,
ESPN just gets the raw end of the stick on this one.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird setup how they have it for the TV deals, but it is what it is, and I agree with you. I mean, it's tough for any team to go over, travel that far. I mean, it's a long travel thing, but to make a West Coast team do it is really tough. I mean, obviously, this was my lock, so this did not pan out in my favor. But the Chargers are backing up my claim that I thought they were going to be good enough to make a good Super Bowl run, and I really think they did. Albeit, though, Tennessee stepped up when they needed to. They're playing scrappy. They're not really getting blown out. I mean, Mariota is definitely. I don't know what's going on there. He is struggling this year.
Weird.
Yeah.
So something is not clicking there. But
I mean, I know he's coming off of that shoulder injury from last year. That might still be
maybe it's still not right.
Right, but yeah,
shoulder injury,
weird.
new system.
They want him to work on his footwork. It's like there's just so much going on there that you just got to be, as a Titans fan, you got to be very skeptical.
So let me put something to you guys real quick. I mean, obviously the AFC is what it is right now. Would you say that it's a 3-team race right now then in the AFC West, really, for the AFC Championship game?
Possibly.
50-50. I would say maybe, because as good as the Chargers and the Chiefs have been playing, the Patriots are still playing at a high level. The Steelers are coming on late.
See, that's where I was going to, what are your, obviously the Patriots are playing very good football right now. Obviously we just spoke about the Chiefs and where they are, and now we're on to the Chargers here. So to me, I would say it's a 3-team race right now because I think Pittsburgh, while yes, they have come on, I don't think they're consistent enough to make it in the playoffs right now.
I just looked at the Chargers schedule. I do not envy this team. Holy crap. So these are their next games. At Seattle, at Oakland, versus Denver, versus the Cardinals, at Pittsburgh, home against Cincinnati. They travel to Kansas City, home against the Ravens, travel to Denver to close out the year.
Yeah, that's a brutal. It's a brutal
5-2.
It's a brutal stretch, but it's a lot of division games.
Yeah. I mean Oakland.
But you never know. Like the one thing I will say about division games is that's the one time you can't take it too lightly. I agree with you. Oakland is a mess right now.
Alabama could go to Oakland
fire
right now and win that game.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But this is the one thing that with teams that are playing bad, but if they're division games, it's always something weird happens. And you have those really close games, and that's where you start seeing more trap games. For the Chargers, they have to look out for that because that is where I think they sometimes play down to the level of their opponents.
The tough games that you listed for the Chargers when you talk about that is that at Baltimore, because I bet you it's a 1:00 start.
Yeah,
might get flex, but I bet you it's 1:00 right now.
It's currently 4:05.
4:05. All right, so that will help. And then the game at Denver, because that's in January or is that December?
December.
December
So
30th.
Yeah. So okay, close enough to January, but yeah.
December 30th at 4:25.
Okay, so that's going to be tough for the Chargers too because it's going to be
game
cold.
of the season, right?
Regular
season.
To close out the regular season.
So there's my 2 losses.
I mean, it could happen. It's just you don't know what's going to go on. But if they take the teams too lightly, the Oaklands and the games they should win, that's what's going to haunt them, and that might hurt them going into playoff seeding. I really think that that's the one thing Philip Rivers and company need to watch out for. But this win against Tennessee, albeit though Tennessee going for the 2-point conversion, I thought was a bad idea.
Yeah,
I mean, I was okay with it.
I know you were fine with that. Me, I'm like,
I mean that's just Vrabel coming from the Bill Belichick's school of thought.
Yeah, that's just a guy saying we need to get a win.
Oh yeah, and
I remember very distinctly the one game the New England had in Indy when Peyton Manning was still with the Colts, and he decided to go for it on 4th and 1 with like their backside against the end zone, and I'm like, why are you doing this?
Well, if you get the 2 points, you're a hero. If you lose, you know everybody criticizes you. I just thought for them, for how bad they had to fight back to get into a tying situation, just kick the points and then go into overtime and see what happens there. But if they're worried that Phil Rivers is going to just start throwing another 50-yard bomb like he was doing to his wide receivers all day, then maybe I understand it. But I just was really questioning that call. But that's just me, because I would just say, hey, kick the points and see what happens. For Tennessee, the woes continue. For the Chargers, another win in the column, so that helps them in their standing. So we see what happens moving forward. For my leap, I drank the Kool-Aid yet again. I almost paid off those New York Football Giants. I thought the trap game almost happened. It almost did. They almost found a way to win, but Coach, why don't you break it down?
Ken, you could have just texted me. I would have told you not to take this
I know, but I was like, you know what? It's the trap game. The Giants got to win a second game somehow.
Yeah,
Atlanta. Yeah, I mean, on paper, Atlanta should have won by 50. They should have. Well, but it's Atlanta, and they just find ways to not do it.
So, I mean, the Giants defensively really, and this is the unfortunate thing, is that the Giants defense has played above average football all year. It's just the unfortunate aspect of they don't have, similar like a pitcher needing, runs to help support him to get a win.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't ask your pitcher to win 1-0 games all the time. They can't ask the Giants defenses to pitch shutouts all the time. They took Atlanta to halftime 0-0. Mm-hmm. It was halftime. It was 0-0 against this high-powered offense. And then they come out from halftime and just the defense was tired. They couldn't get off the field. And if you can't get off the field, your offense can't put up any points. You can't win games, period. And this Giants defense is not a turnover-creating defense. I mean, obviously, they have the lowest number in sacks in the NFL right now. They have like 2. And I'm pretty sure they only have like 4 turnovers created. Yeah. So, when your defense isn't getting off the field, your offense isn't putting up points, you're 1-5 or 1-6 now, and you deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm. I grant you that, but you know what? Atlanta has been streaky all year.
And that's the other thing. They're so hot and cold.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I figured the Giants might be able to get in and get a win. And you know what? They almost did. They almost did.
Yeah. So back, soapbox here, and I'm sorry, but, the thing that's driving me nuts, and I don't know if we got to go over it more, but this not the team, but just from a general manager standpoint, has quit on Eli Manning. And I'll tell you why, and this might be you can call me this my Stephen A. take, but you know what Eli Manning is. You know what he is. Mm-hmm. You know, he is a quarterback that has lead feet. And when Denver had his brother Peyton, they knew that they needed to put an offensive line around him to win. The Giants have not done that for the last 5 years. And the times that they won the Super Bowl, they had one of the most elite offensive lines in all of the NFL. So if you have a guy with lead feet, why are you putting a rookie left guard, a left tackle making $15 million that is overpaid right now, and then us three on the right side?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm playing center, Pad's playing right guard, and Ken's playing right tackle right now. I mean, that's what they have right now. It's terrible.
Oh, I mean, you guys got Nate Solder being a New England Patriots fan. I could have told you that one was a mistake.
I mean, that was brutal.
That man's good for about a penalty a game.
If you put in this, you can put this on anything. You can hold me to it. You put Eli Manning on the Dallas Cowboys right now, and they are winning the NFC East, and they are playing for an NFC title.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
You give him that offensive line, and they are going to the NFC title game.
I don't question that at all. I mean, the Giants' offensive line is their biggest woe. Like I said, I just figured that they'd be able to sneak out that quick win against Atlanta because Atlanta, like we say, you don't know what team you're going to get each week. I mean, Matt Ryan nearly threw for 400 yards this week, but so did Eli.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
so that's why you can't blame Eli. All you people that are blaming Eli for this, it is not his fault.
No, it isn't. It's the offensive line.
Off.
It's the offensive line. If you really have to blame somebody, you blame him because it doesn't matter. You could have Rodgers behind the Giants line, and he would
still be running for his life.
He'd probably be putting up worse stats than Eli. I'll even say that. I'll go on.
I would agree with that. I'm not going to disagree.
So no matter what you do there, it's like the Giants. Until you fix your offensive line, this is going to be the continuum. But they're going to be the trap game of the week because some team is going to take them too lightly one of these times, and they're going to get that win.
Well, they got the ball at OBJ, which was huge. I mean, he was targeted 12 times. I think he got 8 catches. So, I mean, that's huge. Yeah. But that Atlanta team, though, I mean, what an offensive threat they are. If they had a running back, could you just imagine, like, put like a Kareem Hunt or a Kamara on that team?
Yeah,
my God,
they'd be unstoppable. But that's if they utilize them to their full potential.
That's true too.
Because you know what? When they had Coleman and Freeman on there, and you know what? They should be doing 50 points a game, but they don't.
Yeah,
they somehow, I don't know if it's the play calling or what, but they somehow find a way to play down to their to below their level. It's a weird thing to see because they should be doing a lot better, but we'll have to see for next week. That's our locks and leaps for this week. Let us know what you think of them. Hashtag it up ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is the King of Lisle, Luke Visengard, Gladius 205 champion, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Come back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH, and still talking the NFL because there has been some moves going on after the games on Sunday and Monday. And dare I say, the most puzzling move or intriguing move, depending on what side of the fence you're on, has to be the Oakland Raiders trading Amari Cooper to the Dallas Cowboys for Dallas's number 1 pick next year's draft.
Yeah.
Coach, what is your thoughts on this one?
So for Dallas, I'll take it from both ends. From Dallas, you know, they obviously were missing a playmaker, a legitimate wide receiver, you know, an outside threat. So to get an Amari Cooper, who is, I mean, in the middle of his prime right now, is a good trade for them. Good trade.
Yes.
To give up a first-round pick, though, not so smart. Not for a wide receiver at 26 to 28 years old.
I mean, that's Jerry Jones for you, though.
Oh, exactly. That's a very Jerry Jones move.
Any other team, they don't make this deal.
No, not at all.
Jerry Jones.
Well, I thought I remember reading some stuff that like other teams were interested, but they weren't interested in giving up anything higher than a second rounder.
And nor should they.
And for Oakland to hold their guns and say we're not moving until we find a first rounder, and then to find the guy willing to play, good for Oakland.
Oh, because they knew there had to be some team that would be desperate enough to get him. Like, yeah, we'll give you a first.
I mean,
Gruden's going to look like a genius next year's draft if this all pans
if
out.
this pans out, I
it
mean,
pans
that's a
out.
very
So
big.
they're
if this pans out.
calling for his head now, because unless your name is John Gruden, you better be worried about him trading you to some other team. But on paper, he might work out.
He's stacking the deck, which is good. I mean, for the Raiders, because if the season is lost, and we know Marshawn Lynch is now on IR, it's not looking good in Oakland to salvage anything. So if you're going to do anything in the draft, why not load up on as many first-round picks as you can?
Which is funny, though, because this draft... Now, so, I mean, obviously, when they made that trade with Chicago, they were banking on that being a top 10 pick, which is now it's probably not going to be.
No.
Still might be top 15-ish,
Yeah.
Given where they're ranked right now. But, they were hoping for a top 10 pick with that. That's not going to happen anymore. And this Dallas pick is obviously going to be in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So... is it a win? Yes, because you have 3 first-round picks that obviously you can move. But from what I'm seeing from this early projection for the draft, it doesn't look like a great draft.
No,
if you want to be positioned to be for next year.
Yeah. It's kind of puzzling in that aspect, too, because there really isn't, like, last year was all, like, the quarterbacks, the Mayfields, the Allens, the Rosens,
you had
the Darnolds.
Saquon Barkley, you had
Yeah.
Quentin Nelson, you had all those guys coming out.
Yeah, it was such a loaded draft that, you understood why teams were positioning themselves.
Yeah.
There. But this year, there really isn't that sizzle on the draft yet.
No, I mean, the only the quarterback out of Oregon is the only really QB that's being talked about right now. Obviously, Tua is a year away.
Right.
And then you have other positions right now that are kind of, in flex as far as that goes. So it's really not a draft where you're like, oh, you need to be stacked for this year. If anything, I would have been making the move for next year when you have, the quarterback depth that's coming out next year.
Well, the thing is, they do have 2 first-round draft picks next year.
And sure, right, yeah. I mean, that was money in their back pocket there, but like,
they're playing with house money. So.
Yeah, so that's free money there.
But the question is, okay, so you load up now in your draft and you're going to rebuild through the draft, which I could see Gruden doing. That completely makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, for him, this is I'm cleaning house of the personnel that was here before me.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that kind of direction getting taken. But as we saw with the 49ers when John Lynch was doing that, it does pan out. I mean, granted, the Niners are not instant Super Bowl winners, but they have a lot of talent and young talent on their team.
Well, there's also some misses at QB, though, while he was doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, like I say, it could work either way. But if Gruden does it and Gruden gets the guys that pan out, that's going to be the big thing, because you could have all the first-round picks in the world, but if you don't get the right personnel at the right position, it doesn't matter.
And you can miss on first-round picks.
Oh, God, yes.
I mean,
Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, Jamarcus Russell comes to mind. I mean,
Losman.
I'm thinking from a Giants standpoint, you know. I mean, Eric Flowers.
Yeah, we all have players that just didn't pan out that, you take in the first round for whatever reason, and it comes back to haunt you, and it could set your franchise back, depending on the position, for years.
And then if he makes a really bonehead move, which is, I mean, if he, sees obviously the QB out of Oregon as his guy, so if he doesn't get the first pick in the draft, then maybe the Giants do. And obviously the Giants are going to be in position to take a quarterback with this draft. Let's just be real here. So if the Giants are the first pick, is he going to package 2 or maybe 3 of those first rounders to try and move up? Because after him, there's really no quarterback coming in this draft that you're like, oh, you got to go up to get, you know?
The class coming out, like, there's a couple names that stick out, but it's nothing anything like that. Oh, wow, this is a really deep class. It's one of those off years that, like, there's a couple names, but nothing, setting the house on fire.
No, not at all.
No, so, I mean, it's something that just as GMs, and especially in Gruden's case, he's really going to have to watch of who he's taking, because he can stock up on all the draft picks he wants. And he made a smart move. I mean, if you're going to fire sale your team, you might as well get as much as you can for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just to go to the, the Giants obviously making the trade today for the corner to the Saints,
Eli Apple.
Obviously that trade, getting a 4th round pick for a guy who, has had some highs and some lows in his career, but came out of Ohio State being projected as a number 1 corner. To get a 4th round pick, I mean, and a conditional 7th. That's just the opposite aspect, where it was like, no, we're going to hold on to our star player for a king's ransom, and now the Giants making a trade for a 4th round pick.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that for the Giants, it was a smart move to do, I think. If you're already kind of sensing your season is lost, and, I mean, let's face it, the record is what the record is. Might as well try making some deals while you can to try rebuilding.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not a bad deal for Apple. And obviously, the Saints are really trying to make sure their defense is going to be able to compete in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time that I would probably say the Saints have put a defense as a priority as far as getting assets,
Yeah, so I mean, it's just something to watch as it's moving forward. But I mean, that's not even the only big news coming out, because now you're starting to see the teams that are not panning out, players are asking to get out. I mean, the biggest name I can remember here and lately is Patrick Peterson.
And that guy's such a centerpiece in that Arizona defense.
Yeah, I mean, just to see how Arizona has become very, very shaky.
Yeah.
And
for a first-year coach, this is not a good thing for him right now.
No, it's like his worst nightmare come to life.
Yeah.
Oh, without question. And especially if Peterson wants out. If Arizona wants to and they're willing to concede it, they could get a lot for him.
Oh, yeah. They could get the house for him.
Yeah, if you want to think about it, if Cooper got the number one from Dallas and then some, what do you think Peterson could get?
Well, what I think is nice versus the Cooper versus Peterson talk there is that, Cooper's market probably was limited really to Dallas. So Dallas just, was basically negotiating against themselves, because really who needs a wide receiver of the elite teams?
Yeah.
Who needed a wide receiver that could have taken them over the edge? None of them really. So Dallas was just negotiating against themselves. When it comes to Arizona and Patterson, this is a seller's market right now for them at corner, because they are, you got Philly, who might need another, could use some help defensively. Obviously, the Vikings are in the mix from what everybody's been talking about. So, I mean, for them, they have people to negotiate off of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to do, and especially if they can pull it off, too. Because with Peterson, wherever he winds up, I mean, that's only going to help for a Super Bowl contender, because you got to imagine Philadelphia's got to be looking at him. Minnesota's got to be looking at him. I'm hoping the Patriots are not looking at him, because I don't want to imagine him in Foxborough.
Well, because, think about it.
This week.
I know.
Vice versa. I mean, if he ends up on Philly, now he's obviously covering the Minnesota wide receivers in the NFC Championship game, and vice versa. If he ends up on Minnesota, he's covering, Jefferson or Aguilar. So, I mean, either way, one of those teams it's a race war, basically.
Yeah, you got to think who's going to be the one to get to the finish line and get the prize. Because they need to, make sure everybody's stacked up. Because when the trade deadline is coming down, this is where the teams got to really take a look at their rosters and go, is this enough to get us to the Super Bowl? If it's not and they can pull the deal, it's either now or never.
And how fun is this talking about the NFL trade deadline like it's the NBA?
This is wild.
This is the first time in probably 20 years that this has been a leading discussion.
And we haven't even gotten to the whole, is Le'Veon Bell going to get moved? Because first he was going to, then he's coming back, and now we don't know. Like,
now he's reporting at camp. Now he's not reporting at camp,
It's like, because wasn't the rumor released a couple weeks ago that he was going to show up after the bye week? Well, looking at the calendar here, Pittsburgh was off this week. So
and he did not report.
And now they're saying he's not coming.
Yeah, and we're sitting here at the time when teams are doing practices, they're going through planning for the next game, and if they're planning for the next game, Le'Veon would have to be there, and he's not.
And then I heard the latest is now looking at Week 10 for him to report, which is right before the deadline.
Which, I mean, I don't know. I guess I struggle understanding that, because by this time, I mean, granted, he's fresh legs for whatever team would pick him up.
Oh, yeah.
And I get that.
He's fresh legs, that's healthy, been working out, and raring to go.
But it's like, where at that point do you send him? Because you obviously got to send him to the NFC.
Yeah,
you can't keep him in the AFC if you're Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like Brett Favre back in the day wanting to sign with Minnesota, and Green Bay traded him to the Jets.
Yeah, you're gonna see something like that happen. And I mean, that's what should happen too, because for him sitting out as long as he has, and that has been one of the most polarizing things in the world. Because either you understand why he's sitting out because of the contract, or you just can't get under a comprehension of it, because of how much of a distraction it's become on the team. Now, albeit Pittsburgh is starting to come around at the right time. They're winning clutch games when they need to.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you bring him back in that locker room, what's the reaction going to be? That's the true telling sign. So it's now, all right, it's after the bye week. Is he back? Is he not? This is like their lead story.
And what's great about trading for Bell is that a running back position is so easy to adapt to, no matter what offense you're in.
Oh, yeah.
But you need that line, though.
I know. The line is huge, but I'm saying from a player standpoint of picking up the offense and everything, that, I mean, for a running back, it's run right, it's run left. For a wide receiver, though, for like Cooper to come in, now he really, he's got to learn new language, he's got to learn new route and schemes and everything. Timing with Dez is going to be key. Bell, it's just like, all right, where do you want the ball when I hand it to you on the right hand? Where do you want the ball when I hand it to you on the left side? Yeah. And that's it,
Yeah, it's going to be just interesting to see, especially where would he go if he goes to the NFC? That's the question. Who really needs a running back that's in playoff contention?
Yeah.
Could you imagine him in Philly? Because that's where I think he would wind up.
Yeah, I can imagine a Philly, maybe Minnesota. Because Minnesota's running game isn't really jumping out at me as a standing point of their offense.
Yeah,
Dalvin Cook's been
injury prone. Yeah, I mean, I would think Philly obviously could use him.
I know we're talking NFC, but at AFC, I know New England needs a running back with Sonny Michel being week to week off the knee injury he suffered this week. But Lord knows Pittsburgh ain't going to send him to New England.
No, there's no chance of that happening. That could be my lock of the trade.
Yeah, that could be a lock.
That's my lock too.
But it's going to be interesting to watch because, like I said, we're talking about the trade deadline in the NFL.
So this ain't baseball in like July.
I can't remember the last time, like Coach was saying, I can't remember the last time like this has all been relevant. You've seen more trades this year
than ever.
Than I can even remember. I mean, you hear about like one blockbuster one that happens once a year, maybe, because you don't really hear that. You hear about the free agency signings, but you never hear about the trades. And now we've had a couple, and now we might even have more before it's all said and done.
There's a lot of names on the market right now looking to be moved. And my biggest thing is that I'm waiting for the first player-for-player trade before the trade deadline.
Yeah,
that will be crazy because it's always draft picks. I'm waiting for player-for-player.
Yeah, and then who's going to be involved? I mean, there's so many moving parts that could happen with that too. And even the crazy thing too is Des Bryant's still out there. He has not signed with a team yet.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen at this point. But I think he backed himself into a corner.
Maybe, but I mean, this is just the wild thing about the trade deadline.
I can totally see some playoff contention team like having a freak injury with one of their top two wide receivers. And and it is bare as the market might be. There is that name sitting there, and I guarantee you, if some like playoff contending team loses one of their top wide receivers, they'll give them a call.
I think the problem is that I think him and Cleveland had a little wink, handshake here, there, and then I think when he or Dorsey backed out of the deal, and I'm going to assume that was probably Dez being like, maybe I don't want to sign Cleveland anymore.
Yeah,
I think probably GM's talk. And I think that kind of put the hurt on Dez as far as signing somewhere right away.
Could be.
It might be, but I tell you what, this is made for a very interesting in-between game season, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, we're on Tuesday when guys are getting open roster tryouts, and it's like, all right, who's getting traded now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just wild to think. It's going to make for an interesting run to the championships for the NFC and AFC. But let us know what you think. Is there any player that you want to see added to your team? Who do you think is going to get traded? Who do you think is going to stay? We want to know. Hashtag it up, ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves, you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for segment number 3 on this week's ODPH, talking a little NBA action. But we're not talking exactly about, who made the last shot. We're talking about who threw the last punch.
We're not talking about practice.
No, we're definitely not talking about practice. Brandon Ingram suspended 4 games. Rajon Rondo suspended 3 games. Chris Paul from the Rockets suspended 2 games for their involvement in a melee at their home opener for the Lakers.
Not a good look.
No, definitely not a good look. I mean, suspensions galore. The fight broke out. The crowd was definitely ready to jump in the mess too. It just turned into a very wild night at the Staples Center. So thoughts around the panel, starting with the coach about this.
I mean, I'm just glad that Brandon Ingram's punch didn't land on anybody because I just kept thinking back to Kurt Rambis. I mean, he was going to lay somebody. He was going to put somebody down. That was scary.
Yeah.
And especially because he was throwing it where people weren't looking. Chris Paul, Rajon Rondo, obviously there's the alleged history that the two of them have. So the animosity is already there. I think what's great about this NBA season, and it's very early on, but I feel like there's almost this escalated level of passion right now from the players almost. It felt like a playoff atmosphere. I watched the game, flipping in between, the Ohio State game for my wife, but I after that was all said and done.
Yeah.
It was full Laker game, and I feel like this NBA season right now that there is a level of passion from these players that we haven't had before, and I think it was showing up on game 2 of the NBA season when there's already, a brouhaha.
Right. You definitely have a level of passion from the players, specifically in the Western Conference, that I don't think you normally see every year. Obviously, the Western Conference has been the superior conference for a number of years now. That's not anything new if you're an NBA fan and even have been paying attention casually. With everything that's been said about Golden State and how, they're expected to win the whole thing in spectacular fashion. And then with all the brouhaha made with LeBron going to the Lakers, you've got a lot of teams in the Western Conference that are kind of standing there waving their hand going, hi, yeah, no, we're here too. So they definitely want to step their game up. I don't mind a scuffle. And when I say scuffle, I don't mean like, Boston Red Sox and New York Yankees circa 2003. No, I'm talking like little John, little trash talking, because that builds a story, much like you see in professional wrestling or in mixed martial arts, where, okay, they're scuffling now, they're jawing now, down the road, they could be facing each other in the playoffs, and all of a sudden, you got a story here where, hey, remember that beef these two teams had early in the year where they were jawing at each other and players got suspended? They got to face each other like 5 times now.
It's a weird thing because I agree with you guys. I think there's a lot more passion, a lot more intensity involved in these early games. And I think, especially with the Western Conference, it's due to that LeBron is now in the Western Conference. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is kind of their welcome to the West, so to speak. I'm trying to think of some better way to put it, but no. It's honestly, they're welcoming him to the conference. Mm-hmm. And they're just not saying, okay, you did all this stuff in Cleveland, you did all this stuff in Miami, it doesn't matter.
Welcome to the big boys.
Yeah, welcome to the real conference. This is where you're going to have to really cut your teeth.
I'll say it's been the kind of joke for years. Oh, you're in the Eastern Conference. It's you're playing Candyland. It's easy. Getting through the Western Conference, it's like trying to survive a book of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a wild scenario that I think the Rockets definitely want to make sure that they're saying, hey, we're getting overlooked right now because everybody's saying, oh, well, the Lakers and the Lake Show is back and blah, 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 blah. They're also saying, hey, we were one game away from going to the Western Conference Finals against, arguably the best team in recent NBA history. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I think they want to establish their, presence on the court, so to speak.
Yeah.
But you also know there's some bad blood between Rondo and Chris Paul, as we're finding out more and more, allegedly. That is just, this is going to add to the rivalry moving forward.
Yeah, I think it just makes, like, Pat was saying, I think it just makes for a storyline that I think the NBA is severely lacked. I mean, especially with the fact that the East, the last 4 years has been the same championship game, and that's hurt. I think it's really, really taken away from what the NBA had to offer, and now with LeBron moving to the West and now those new rivalries coming up, and anytime, obviously, that there is a Los Angeles market or there's a New York market, anytime that those markets are good, I always feel like it's beneficial, and everybody says this, it's beneficial for the NBA because then the national attention is there. And now that LeBron's there, the media and everything, the focus is on Los Angeles. I mean, they had that pregame, they showed that game on, when normally they wouldn't have a basketball game, they showed that on ESPN just because it was the home debut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just shows right there that there's a level of commitment that, from the media standpoint, that we need to get these games on air.
Yeah.
And I think that only helps, too, especially the NBA is coming in. And I know the running joke is, well, the NBA doesn't matter until Christmas Day. But this is obviously showing that, no, every game kind of matters. Mm-hmm. And this is something that, for new fans to try getting into, seeing LeBron playing out West and what team he has with the Lakers. I mean, we can kind of go back and forth about this. I mean, personally, I don't think they're going to get higher than a 4th seed with the current roster they have.
I say they're lucky to get a 7th or 8th.
They're lucky to get an 8th because I remember seeing a thing today. As we record, they're 0-3, and it's like the 3rd or 4th time in LeBron's career that the team he's played on has started 0-3. Every time that's happened, he has not made the playoffs.
And it's going to be interesting to see what this team can do because I think, like I said, I think they definitely have to add some players and definitely do some moving pieces around to really contend because in the West, it's still the Golden State show.
Well, I will say this. If the Lakers want to make any improvements and get out of the bottom of the conference, they got to start playing a little defense because as we record, their opponents are scoring 132 points per game.
Yeah, that's not going to win you anything.
You ain't going to win. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're like, the dream team of 92. You're giving up 132. You're not winning.
Well, a lot of that, too, is the fact that they're playing at a pace right now that's probably the fastest in the NBA, I would say. They're a lot. I mean, if you can catch a Laker game, they're a lot of fun to watch right now with LeBron, what they're trying to do with Luke Walton's offense, because what they're trying to do is, they're not putting him around shooters like has been, LeBron's kind of MO with teams that have been built around him. It's always been guys who can spot up for three and let him, space the floor. This year they're putting him around ball handlers, and they're trying to purposely push the ball up the court and run quick offensive sets. And it's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, if you can catch a Laker game, if you can stay up till 10:30, I do recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, us on the East Coast, I mean, that's the challenge. On the West Coast, you got to be loving it right now. And now, obviously, the record doesn't really mean a lot right now. It's still super early. There's a lot more basketball to be played. But it's interesting to see how long this team is going to take before it really gels and we really see what the true Lakers are going to be this season.
Right. And I mean, you saw a bit of this when LeBron went to Miami the first year, and they didn't start that season all that hot. There was a lot of questions of, is this going to work? Is this a failed experiment? Because they weren't winning as much as people expected them to.
Right, but I think the big difference, obviously, is there was more seasoned superstars with Miami.
Obviously.
This one has got a unique mix, if I can use that, of veterans and youth.
And to make that point, I think the hardest part is I think that they really need to find time to get. I mean, really, and obviously probably the numbers aren't there from an analytics standpoint, but their best five probably has to be something of like Kuzma, LeBron, Ingram, Josh Hart, and probably Lonzo Ball on the floor at the same time, because those guys can spread and shoot a little bit better, and they can still push the ball and be playmakers. The problem with that lineup is that now you have a 6'10" Kuzma who really is a stretch four, if not a big three. And you got LeBron, who obviously is his entire career was a three, and now is playing the four for this Laker team. Ingram, obviously not the defensive stalwart that you probably want at your three position, and Josh Hart, inconsistent at best, has some moments of greatness, but also has his inconsistencies. And then obviously Lonzo Ball is what it is. I mean, he has highs and he's got a lot of lows.
Yeah,
a lot more lows right now.
Yes. So
I think that's their best five. The problem is you can't play that five like a Golden State Warrior can play their the death lineup. Like they can play that lineup an entire game and be okay. You can play Draymond, KD, Iguodala, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry and be okay. They can't play that lineup there because teams like even the East, if you go up against a Giannis or if you go up, once Porzingis gets healthy, I mean, Porzingis would be all over Kuzma if he was covering him. And LeBron can't cover KP or Giannis the entire game. He just can't do it because he's too important offensively.
Yeah, it's just a lot of questions that the Lakers are going to have to figure out answers for. And I mean, obviously, will this fight be the spark that they need? And it's debatable because sometimes this will really pull a team together, or otherwise it's just going to really be, okay, we just had a media circus here because of something that happened on the court. How does a team react, especially a young team? Because like we said, the Lakers have a lot of young players on it. So how do they react to this? Is this going to be something that is now going to be moving forward? Or are they going to say, okay, we need to really, keep our emotions in check and really, learn how to play together? Or are we going to just be sitting here just, it is what it is, and, let's hope something happens?
Well, to that point, they came back and played San Antonio last night and played well.
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron missed some late free throws down the stretch that, Kobe would have made.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they were still in the game. And I think what the biggest thing was after that game, and I think this is probably the most important thing, was Luke Walton coming out and saying that, the foul calls need to be changed because they, I think San Antonio had I think he said something like 56 points in the paint. Los Angeles had something like 76.
Yeah.
But the free throws were 2-1 in favor of San Antonio.
I remember seeing the video, and I forget who we brought up specifically, but it was somebody on the Lakers was on the floor for 40 minutes and was driving to the rim every time, and he didn't get a foul call.
Yeah, and I mean, that for a LeBron team to not get foul calls is crazy, but at the same time, I think it's important for Luke Walton to not just be the young cat in the room and be like, hey, I'm going to come out and speak for my guys.
Yeah.
He's going to have to if the team is going to be successful. There's a lot of things that have to go right in the Lakers' favor to really make them contenders. It's still too early to really give a fine prediction, but after seeing how they played against Houston and the reaction after, that's the true tell sign. So moving forward, we'll have to wait and see. But what's your thoughts on the current NBA season? What's your thoughts on the Lakers? We want to know. Hashtag it up, ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
2, 3, 4.
Hey, this is Johnny Moose from Excite Wrestling, and you're listening to the ODPH. I didn't mess it up. I thought I would. Right now, back to the guys.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH. Pat, start us off on that local minute.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit of Binghamton Devils because the season is young. The season is just getting started, but hockey is back in Binghamton. Looking at the standings, they are currently 3 and 4. A little bit of room to work, but then you look at the top of the division where the Rochester Americans are 5 and 2, so they're right there. Season is early, like I said. Looking at the schedule, they have a game away at the Senators this Wednesday, the 24th. Then they are home Friday and Saturday. Friday, they are playing the Charlotte Checkers. 7:05 game time. It is $5 student tickets. It's college night, so if you're a college student, okay, good opportunity to go see those Binghamton Devils. Saturday, they are playing the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. 7:05 game time. They're having a Halloween party and a free post-game Halloween skate. So you got plenty of opportunities this weekend to get out and see those Binghamton Devils.
BinghamtonDevils.com for more information. Hopefully the boys can bounce back after a rough weekend where they were shut out both games.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what goes on. But that's not the only Binghamton sport going on this weekend.
Go on.
Coach Duffy, break it down for us.
The Bulldogs are back in Binghamton, ladies and gentlemen. Your ABA defending champs of the East Coast are back. They are kicking off the season here on October 27th against the Rock City Ravens at 7:05 at Davis College, right off the circle here in lovely Binghamton, New York. Basically, you can call that Johnson City. I mean, that would be fair to say. Your Bulldogs came in at the ABA preseason ranking in the top 5, baby, with that 5th slot.
Top 5 out of 143 teams, if I'm not mistaken.
Not to mention, also probably the first time ever, I would assume, that this is the second time or the first time that a second season team in the top 5 of preseason rankings.
Yes, that is a true testament of the Bulldogs. Now, we have talked Bulldogs before. We're hoping to get Jimmy Evans back on the podcast at some time in the near future. But either way, if you have not been down to see a Bulldogs game, you need to get down there. It's an indescribable feeling to go to a Bulldogs game.
Especially now that they're at Davis in that small, it's a tighter arena or a stadium or facility. You got to make sure you get there early.
You got to get there early. The gym is going to be rocking because, at their previous gym, it was almost sellout every night. And to think about it, too, you don't really hear a lot about them until they really started winning. So if you jump on early, you can really experience the team and see how far they grow because they have a new team, a lot of players coming back from last season, a couple new faces. There's so much going on with the Bulldogs that you got to get down to Davis College if you can make it there. For more information, BinghamtonBulldogs.com. You can find them on Facebook too, Binghamton Bulldogs. Check them out. Support those dogs if you can get the chance to. Sports are back in the 607 in the fall, folks. What else do I need to say? Other than that, let's start rounding those bases, shall we? Pat, you want to kick us off?
Well, yeah, got World Series is starting tonight, and I know you guys talked World Series and baseball playoffs last week, but I wasn't able to give my take on it. Of course, you have the Los Angeles Dodgers representing the National League facing the Boston Red Sox representing the American League. Game 1 is tonight as we record. Start time of 8:09 on Fox. You've got Clayton Kershaw versus Chris Sale. Two of the best pitchers in the game, arguably the best left-handed pitcher in Clayton Kershaw that the game has seen in Lord knows how long. I'm very intrigued by this matchup. This is one that I look at the two teams and you got to give me a quarter and I got to flip it several times to make a choice. These two teams are so close. I really don't know who's going to win this, but if you had to hold a gun to my head and say pick, I'm going to say Dodgers in 7. Of course, then you look Game 2 is Wednesday, October 24th. Same start time, same network. You've got Hyun Yin Ryu versus David Price. Another good matchup. This will definitely be a series to watch.
Anybody but Boston. I'm sorry.
Yes.
As a Yankee fan,
Yes.
I can't root for Boston.
Yes.
It's going to be a good series, though, regardless.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take Dodgers in 7 because it's going to go that far. You got to give the Devils their due. Boston is playing at a high level right now, but the Dodgers are going to scrap in there. They're not fearing anybody. And, hey, we got to see what happens when they get on the diamond.
I'll say Dodgers in 7, and I'm going to say Kershaw is your MVP because he's going to be making a stupid amount of starts on short rest.
Yeah, and as long as they don't burn him out, that's the only thing you got to worry about.
This is true.
Because, obviously he puts a lot of tread on those tires.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see what happens there. Coach, what you got for us?
Mine is going to be discussing the newly launched Premier Lacrosse League that was just announced by Paul Rabel on Monday. It was breaking news to me. I had followed it when they originally made the announcement that the league was going to be created. This is actually something that's so spectacular from a lacrosse standpoint. I mean, obviously there is the Major League Lacrosse League right now that's being played. You got teams in various cities. You got the Newark Lizards. There was a team in Rochester that recently moved to Dallas. But what's going to be great about this league is this is a league that's dedicated to making sure that lacrosse can be played as a full-time sport. Currently, right now, with the structure of the Major League Lacrosse League, players aren't full-time. A lot of these guys have day jobs Monday through Friday and then go play, Saturday, Sunday games to go back to their jobs on Monday, and they don't really have anything, that can be driven off the income, off of playing lacrosse. So what's going to be great about this league is that players' contracts are going to be actually based on generated by the league, so they're going to actually have equity in the league. This is going to be a league that's going to be owned and ran by players, and they already have major sponsorships, and they already have the biggest thing, which is TV time. So NBC Sports is going to be covering the games. There's going to be 19 games televised, and you can sign up for the NBC app to get more games. There's going to be, I think, 32 games played this year with 6 teams. Already announced 83 players have gone into the player pool to be selected. So this is a tremendous thing for the growth of lacrosse. I mean, obviously, I've talked about, my passion and love of lacrosse. So to see it being able to be played at a full-time level is amazing. And hats off to Paul Rabel, the guy who started this. It was his brainchild. He does so many things from, business standpoint to being really the first guy to ever become a full-time lacrosse player and be able to make money off of being a full-time lacrosse player. So, for him from an entrepreneurial standpoint is amazing. I can't speak enough of how excited I am for this. So I can't wait to see it develop.
Definitely something to watch if you're a lacrosse fan. Also something to watch if you're a sports fan, because there's a couple things in here that, if you keep your eye on in the future, might have an impact on sports in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, equity. When you talk about having equity in the league from the players, that's wild. Because right now it's all ownership based and it's all ownership driven. So to have equity in the league is tremendous.
This is a huge step for lacrosse, and you know what? More power to it. I think it's going to be a great thing to watch and jump on board early. That's all we can really say. Nobody's a bigger fan of lacrosse here than our coach, so you can definitely hear the passion in his voice. This is something to definitely jump in and be involved in and check it out. Give it a shot and see where we go from here.
Yeah, it's going to be tour-based first, so, hopefully they come to somewhere that's near us. Whether it be like a Rochester, Syracuse area. If they come to Binghamton, that would be amazing. I highly doubt they're going to be looking to do major cities. They're going to be looking to do major markets. So hopefully that it might come somewhere close that you can go see it. But you're going to get 3 games played on Saturday and Sunday, so they're going to make it worth your while.
Definitely check it out if you get the chance to see it. So for my rounding the bases, I got a couple quick ones to go through. UFC is back in action this weekend. There's a fight night going on for the light heavyweight division. Volkan versus Anthony Smith is going to be a heck of a fight, I will definitely say. I tell you, don't blink on this one, but I think Anthony Smith is going to sneak this one out. And there was a shakeup on that UFC 230 card yet again. Mm-hmm. Luke Rockhold had to pull out due to injury. Jacare Souza is going to step in and fight Chris Weidman.
Oh, boy.
On that one in the, I believe, co-main event, because the main event is going to be Derek Lewis versus Daniel Cormier for the heavyweight title. And on a bit of sad news, I know we talk on the wrestling recap about pro wrestling, but there was some bad news that came around the WWE and just in general, too, because you never want to hear anybody get sick with leukemia. But Roman Reigns, the WWE champion, came out on Monday Night Raw and announced that he has to relinquish his championship, and he is taking time away from pro wrestling to battle leukemia yet again. He was mentioning that he has battled it before 11 years ago and has unfortunately returned. Superman punched that thing, and get back soon, Roman. We wish you the best. So now let's go right into our locks and leaps. Pad, what you got to kick us off with that?
Well, I'm going to start with my leap because this one for me was a little easier to pick than my lock. For my leap, I'm turning to the Baltimore Ravens and Carolina Panthers game Sunday, 1 o'clock in Carolina. Baltimore is currently a 1.5-point favorite, so I'm taking Carolina to win at home.
Okay.
And then for my lock, I'm really tossing up. There are a couple games I could have looked at. I definitely looked at Indianapolis and the Oakland Raiders because Indy is currently a 3-point favorite and Oakland has absolutely nothing going for it. You look at the news coming down. Derek Carr is, the team's faith in him is shaken. No Amari Cooper, no Marshawn Lynch. What has he really got? But, I mean, I'm going to stick with the pick. I've been going the last couple of weeks. They haven't done me wrong. I'm sticking with the LA Rams to beat the Green Bay Packers at home. Currently, the spread is at 9.5 point.
Wow.
It's a 9.5 point win for the Rams. I do not think it'll be that by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be closer to 9.5.
The young one here is showing no fear rolling those dice. That's all I got to say on those. Coach, what you got for your locks and leaps?
Man, so I looked at that lock for the Rams as well with 9.5. I can't make that play.
Yeah.
So my lock is going to be the Patriots 14 against the Bills on Monday Night Football.
My man.
Yeah, I mean, just
I can't.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to pick. I mean, the point spreads right now are tough right now. And then my leap, I'm going to go with the Browns to cover. They're 8.5 point dogs on the road against the Steelers. I mean, they played them to overtime at home. You got to like
This
Baker
is
Mayfield.
true.
So
This is true.
I like that spread. So give me the Browns 8.5.
In Baker we trust. I'm going with the coach on this one. That is my leap too. I don't fear the Steeler Nation. I think the Browns are going to go in there and do what they need to do.
Give me those points.
Yeah.
Give me all of them. I hope the line goes to 10.
8.5. Steelers always struggle to cover. They might win, but they struggle to cover.
Yeah.
And I got to say, with the whole Le'Veon thing going on, who knows what's going to happen? Hugh Jackson might be gone from the Browns. They might be all fired up, and you might see like a whole brand new offense. I don't know, but I'm definitely going with Baker and company on this one. And my lock, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals 4.5 favorites over Tampa Bay. They're facing them at home.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you know, they
Cold October day.
exactly. Teams from Florida don't usually play that well up in the north.
No, they don't.
So let's see how it goes from there. But we want to know your picks. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. We want to interact with you. So that's all we got for this week. So for our coach,
Good night and good luck.
for Padawan J,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH. We'll see you next time.